Maybe we can move in closer so Howard can get warm.
If you can't hear me, I can always speak louder. I'm famous for that. William Walford was blind. He was called on to preach from time to time in a rural English church. He composed sermons in his head to deliver on Sundays. Thomas Salmon, a New York native, spent some time in Coleshill, Warwickshire, England, where he met Walford. He published the following prayer of Walford around 1845. Sweet hour of prayer, sweet hour of prayer, that calls me from a world of care, and bids me at my Father's throne make all my wants and wishes known. In seasons of distress and grief, my soul has often found relief, and oft escaped the tempter's snare by thy return, sweet hour of prayer. Now, I picked this and researched it because this is the way Elizabeth started most of the things that she did during her lifetime. And I thought it interesting where that prayer came from. Elizabeth used to begin her spiritual renderings quoting Psalm 19-14. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Again, I thought it was fitting that we start this eulogy with her words. And it's really powerful, I think, standing here by the sign, because the picture that I think Gretchen had that was chosen to put on the paper that Sandy handed out was done right here. Elizabeth Barron and St. Catherine of Siena passed back over the bridge between heaven and earth on January 20th. Elizabeth dedicated her life to other people. The spiritual always was superior to the material. She was rich in intelligence and understanding, yet financially challenged. Money never really mattered to her. St. Catherine's life was very similar to Elizabeth. They both found God through Christ and dedicated their lives to both of them, through them humanity. They both advised and investigated politicians, local sheriffs, all the way to presidents. Both gave advice to popes, politicians, and anyone in sight. I was actually present when St. Catherine, through Elizabeth, sent advice to Pope John Paul II. I actually sent the letters based on St. Catherine's asking during one of the sessions that we had. Both denied the material side of life, opting for a spiritual life. We know the Pope got the information that was coming from Elizabeth and St. Catherine because I got a letter back from the Vatican. I had actually sent a tape where St. Catherine, through Elizabeth, was giving some advice to the Pope. They sent me a letter back thanking me for both my letter and the tape from St. Catherine. So we know that what she said and what she did hit home. St. Catherine's My Book, more commonly known as the Dialogue, was written in 1377 to 1378 time frame, 2 years before she died, at the age of 33. Only 2 women were ever given the title a doctor by the Roman Catholic Church, Teresa of Avila and St. Catherine of Siena. The Dominican nun's Dialogue was widely spread about by her disciples, as was Raymond of Capua's biography of his time with her. The Dialogue is still in print. The copy I have was from 1980. Elizabeth recently finished her autobiography, Love and Light Elizabeth, and she died a month or so after it was printed. Many similarities, because they were both the same entity, is what we pretty well have concluded. God gave Elizabeth a talent as an artist, and she got what material necessities that were necessary from her gift of prophecy and art. I can tell you of Elizabeth's life working for Robert Oppenheimer of the Manhattan Project. I can talk about her kids and grandkids, but they're here. You can either read her obituary or you could speak with the kids and grandkids. But I had the good fortune to team up with Elizabeth, St. Catherine, and Jimmy Smyer on many local, statewide, national, and international capers over 25 years. Jim is the professor. St. Catherine and Elizabeth are the bridge between heaven and earth, and I'm the rough around the edges, slightly portly detective. I can't count the number of times Elizabeth called me in the middle of the night to jump in the car and travel with her to joust with windmills. Elizabeth, Jim, and I knew we were jousting with windmills, but in so doing, we left people proof that it was the action that mattered, not the result. Action was our responsibility here on earth. Results were up to God. Many times it looked like our results were less than successful. Many times we were all subject to ridicule. We were laughed about to my face by the FBI when we brought them information about page 121 of the contracts on the Mark Clark Expressway. But several months after we brought this information out, the bridge fell. After we told them it was going to fall. And 7 years later, the problems of the load-bearing capacity and faulty materials in the bedding between the road beds came out to be proven. Everyone thought we were nuts, but then these things fell. 7 years later, again, the Mount Pleasant section corroded. It was supposed to last for 40 years. St. Catherine and Elizabeth told them this. So the next time you drive to Mark Clark towards Mount Pleasant and you hear that bump, that's what we were talking about many years ago. That's what we told them the problems were. We all learned that things are in God's time, not our time. We're all saddened by her passing. I, however, find great joy at this time, for I believe that when you die, you carry your knowledge of God with you to the great beyond. I think Elizabeth and St. Catherine understood heaven and earth better than most, and have taken this knowledge with them into heaven. In heaven, as it is on earth, if my theory is correct, many souls in heaven don't get it either. Because if they've taken what they've learned here, they haven't learned a whole lot. St. Catherine in her dialogue spends many pages talking about Christ as the bridge that I mentioned before, between heaven and earth. I find joy in the fact that Elizabeth and Catherine are crossing that very bridge as we gather here. I feel sorry for those both on earth and in heaven that fly the banner of evil. Down here stands a righteous army of Christians, Jewish people, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, Native Americans, and even those that fit outside the box, ready to battle those demons and evil, both down here and up there. I won't end this eulogy with rest in peace, because I know Elizabeth and Catherine won't rest and are carrying our fight straight into heaven. They won't rest until we achieve peace in heaven and on earth. Thank you. Does anybody want to